Welcome to Tom Gresham's Gun Talk, where there's more to talk about than shooting. There's reloading and hunting and self-defense, too.
Hey, welcome back to Gun Talk. Tom Gresham here. Our number is 866-TALK-GUN. Glad that you could be with us. We are here, well, every week. If you miss a show, well, by all means, it's easy to pick up on what you missed. We archive Gun Talk. We put it on the web. We put it up in podcasts. We've actually been putting this thing up as a podcast before there was such a word as a podcast, before there was such a thing as an iPod. We've been putting this up on the web for more than 20 years. Any place that you get your podcast, you can find Gun Talk. Also, actually, the smart move, the easiest way to get it, is to make sure that you have the Gun Dealio app. That's our own app. And you can listen to the show through that. Now, the Gun Dealio app actually is all about getting you good deals and saving money on guns and ammo, and it does that in spades. But you can also listen to Gun Talk through that. And you can check out Gun Talk Radio through, YouTube, on our Facebook page. By the way, check out our Gun Talk Facebook page. We have a lot of videos there, a lot of interesting information, things that you're not hearing other places. We're testing different kinds of ammo, different kinds of guns, just a lot of things going on. So check it out, Gun Talk Media on Facebook. All right. We are 16 days away from the federal bump stock ban going into effect. There are a number of lawsuits challenging that ban. And the question is, what do we do with that? What do people, if you have a bump stock, which was legal to own, the ATF said it was legal to own. They said, fine, yeah, go ahead, no problem, you got it. And then they changed their mind and said, nope, now it's illegal. And it would be a serious crime if you had it after March 26th. So what do we do? Well, joining us right now to talk about where we are with at least one of the lawsuits, as well as some other lawsuits on the Second Amendment side of things, we have Stephen Stamboulieh out of Mississippi. Stephen, thank you for joining us.
I appreciate it, Mr. Gresham. Long-time listener, first-time guest.
Well, thank you. It occurs to me that a lot of the action on the Second Amendment front used to be pretty much all in Congress or sometimes in the legislatures, but a lot of it has moved into the courts because it's become more difficult, particularly to fight it in the states. And sometimes the pushback has to be in courts, and that's kind of where you come in with your expertise.
So, we look at what the left has done for years, getting their pet projects moved, not through Congress, but the courts. And we have, the gun lawyers have kind of, I'll speak for myself, how about that, have adopted that strategy of we can't get Congress to do it, can't get the state legislatures to do it, we're going to do it through the courts. Mm-hmm. And that strategy is effective.
All right, so you're working on at least two major cases right now. I guess let's touch on the Hawaii case for a moment, and then we'll do a bump and run, hit that one, and then run over to bump stocks. The Hawaii case is fascinating. Explain kind of the cliff notes on that one.
Ooh, okay. I'm co-counsel on this case with Alan Beck out of San Diego. George Young is a native Hawaiian Vietnam veteran that tried to get a permit to carry a handgun, openly or concealed, in the state of Hawaii. He was denied the first time pre-Heller. Then he filed another case after Heller. He got denied again. And he filed another case after McDonald, and the district court said, the right to carry doesn't extend outside the home, period. You don't have a case here. The Ninth Circuit, July of 2018, reversed the district court and said there is a right outside the home. Peruta, that California case that said you have no right to concealed carry, they didn't say anything about open carry. So this panel said there has to be a right that extends outside the home. Peruta says no concealed carry right, so it must be an open carry right. Go back down to district court. The district court's going to reevaluate and go on. Except Hawaii now taking this case very seriously because they lost in the Ninth Circuit. Hired a D.C. law firm, the former Obama Deputy Solicitor General, and I don't know how many attorneys from his firm. I think there are 12 attorneys on that side now, and there's Alan Beck and myself on Mr. Young's. Hey, bring them on. As many attorneys as you can bring them on. We're gonna have some fun. They just vacated the panel opinion and agreed to rehear it en banc, which Then they set it for an argument on March 25th, which is great. Hey, look, we're ready to go. And then they stayed our case. They stayed the case pending the Supreme Court's review of the tiniest of issue in New York about whether a New York City resident can take a unloaded and locked pistol from his home in New York City to a second home outside of the city. Okay,
so that case is going to go before the Supreme Court, and so the Ninth Circuit has said, okay, we're going to wait until that. That's kind of a weird delay. One of the things I want to touch on here is several courts have focused on this idea that Heller didn't say you have the right to have a gun outside of your home. It didn't say that. I mean, it seems like anybody who can read the English language can read it and say, no, it does not say that, does it?
It does not say specifically. No, it doesn't. And you know, the way that I look at this is, if the right didn't extend outside the home, there would be no reason for the Heller court to talk about the sensitive places issue. Like,
correct.
You know, nothing should, you know, we can't carry in a government building, which is ridiculous, but we can't carry there. Or we can't carry in a school, which here in Mississippi we can if we have a certain permit. So there would be no reason for them to even talk about that. But let's fast forward to this 2016 opinion in the Saitano case, which was about stun guns, electric arms case. Mm-hmm. If the Second Amendment didn't apply outside the home, Jamie Saitano was found with a stun gun outside of her home. So how easy would it have been for them to say, well, the Second Amendment doesn't apply here because she had it outside her home? But that's not what they said. So they haven't said specifically that, here's the right, it extends outside the home, but, we can all read between the lines and say, well, if there was no right outside the home, then they could say it.
You sound pretty confident that you can win this Hawaii case, because the whole idea is, look, if they say, well, you can't have a concealed carry permit and you can't open carry, then what they're saying is you can't actually bear arms outside of the home at all, and that becomes the crux of the matter, doesn't it? It destroys the right, because It's not keep or bear, it's keep and bear. And just having a gun in your home is great if you're home all the time. But people aren't home all the time. They travel to work. They travel, for pleasure, whatever. And so you need that gun, to go with you in case of confrontation. And Heller actually spoke about, confrontation. And confrontation doesn't always happen in your house. They talk about the core of the right is in the home. The right is at its zenith in the home. But that doesn't mean it's diminished just because I step outside into my front yard. Or if I go down to 7-Eleven and gas up my car, I can still get attacked there. Yeah. Well, Stephen, I'm so glad you're working on this. Tell you what, I'm going to get you to hold for a second here. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're talking with Stephen Stamboulieh. We're going to be talking about the bump stock ban, which goes into effect unless something happens in 16 days, and where we are with those lawsuits. We'll be right back with more Gun Talk.
When the U.S. military's elite units and law enforcement agencies across the globe demanded innovation and reliability, they didn't settle. They chose Sig Sauer. When world champion professional shooters demanded precision accuracy, they didn't settle. They chose Sig Sauer. So it's no surprise more and more civilian gun owners are refusing to settle for anything less. They're choosing Sig Sauer firearms, ammunition, electro-optics, suppressors, air guns, and training. Sig Sauer. Never settle.
You got your carry permit, and that's good. But you could use more training. Get the DVDs, which have what you need. Springfield Armory presents Concealed Carry 1 and Concealed Carry 2 with Bata Group. Learn specific concealed carry skills from Top Gun fighting trainers. Get trained. Be prepared. This really is life and death. ShopGunTalk.com. That's ShopGunTalk.com.
For 36 years, the U.S. Sportsmen's Alliance has been fighting to protect hunting, fishing, and trapping for sportsmen from coast to coast. Today, we are under constant attack from extremist animal rights groups who want to end your ability to hunt in the U.S. Join us to protect our sporting heritage and our way of life outdoors. To join or for more information on how you can help, go to ussportsman.org. That's ussportsman.org.
Your everyday carry advantage. The new M&P Shield M2.0 pistol from Smith & Wesson has the enhancements of the M2.0 line with aggressive grip texture and a crisp and lighter trigger pull. Extremely thin and lightweight, you can carry it all day. Also available with an integrated crimson trace laser in 9 or 40. The M&P Shield M2.0. Visit smith-wesson.com.
On this issue of the bump stock ban that has been put in place by the ATF, we're talking with Stephen Stamboulieh. He's an attorney, and one of his cases is a lawsuit about the bump stocks. Stephen, where are we with that? I mean, we're like 16 days away from this thing going into effect, right?
We're very close, unfortunately. So we filed this case the day after the rule was submitted to the Federal Register, during the government shutdown. We had a hearing on February 19th and a decision that, in my opinion, is completely incorrect about giving deference to the ATF for this criminal statute and this redefinition of machine gun. We appealed it that night to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, and the appeals court has agreed to expedite the case, and we have argument on March 22nd. So very, very soon.
Ooh. Okay, so March 22nd, it's coming right up. For those who don't know, let me just go over and correct me, see if I get this right. Basically, the ATF people had requested, the manufacturers requested, are we okay with bump stocks? And they looked at them and said, yes, you're good. And people said, are you sure we're good? They said, oh, yeah, it's good. It's not a machine gun, perfectly legal owned, it's good to go. So for a number of years, people bought these. Hundreds of thousands of them have been sold. And then after the Las Vegas shooting, where a guy used bump stocks, the White House, unfortunately, and it's a political deal, got involved and asked the ATF to get involved and basically ban them. And the ATF went back and said, okay, all of that time we told you it was legal and it's not a machine gun, ixnay on that. It is now illegal and it will be a machine gun. And if you own one after March 26th, it will be like having an illegal machine gun. How'd I do?
Everything is 100% spot on except for one little issue that I'm calling the FBI out on,
okay,
and the ATF. They have not, or the ATF has not yet inspected the rifles that he used in the Mandalay Bay event. So we don't know for 100% certain. Everyone just kind of glosses over it and says, well, he used them because we saw pictures. And I'm saying, no, we don't know that he absolutely used them until you do a report of a technical examination. Make sure he didn't have like a drop-in auto sear, or it wasn't an illegally converted machine gun, or if he didn't have a binary trigger and a bump stock, which people do, and it makes it shoot even faster. So there's a whole bunch of questions. What we can agree on, it was all politically motivated. I have a big problem with President Trump saying the 8-year assault on our Second Amendment is over, and then turning right around and says, I'm going to write him out because the bump stock's out because I'm able to. And then getting the ATF and DOJ to literally define words inside of the definition of machine gun that are they're not unclear, they're not ambiguous, but we're going to say this is what it means. And by the way, March 26th, Mr. and Mrs. America, turn them in or you're going to be a felon.
So therein lies the question. For the hundreds of thousands of people who own these, what should they do at this point?
Well, I can't advise them on what to do. I mean, I would, if I'm in their shoes, I would wait until the day of, the day that we know the point of no return has come and gone. I mean, we hope that the circuit court stays it pending a full review of the court. I mean, but there's no way to predict what they're going to do. So I don't know what to tell people other than, pay attention to the news, because if we get this enjoined, it's going to make the news and people are going to be aware of it. My other problem with what the ATF has done is they don't have the institutional grace to say, well, we've got these machine guns. They're not going to be machine guns until March 26th. They're either machine guns or they're not. If they're machine guns, they're not registered machine guns because of the ban on new civilian-owned machine guns.
Sure.
So then you're in possession of a machine. Right. So we're in possession of a machine gun now, right?
Right.
So now we're going to rely on prosecutorial discretion to not go back to all these people that turned them in because the ATF promised them they wouldn't. I just don't trust them.
What I think I just heard you say is if you turn them in, it is in fact self-incrimination that I owned an unregistered machine gun.
Well, they're telling you to turn them in, and I'm not disagreeing with how you characterize it because I think it's true. But how can you say it only becomes a machine gun when we've redefined these terms? It's either a machine gun or it's not. And March 26th isn't some magic dispossession date that automatically they become machine guns. Therefore, you're a felon as of that day going forward. Only if you possess them.
What's the
They're
basis?
either machine guns or they're not.
What's the basis for your lawsuit? What are you challenging?
I'm challenging a couple things. Number one, I'm challenging violations under the Administrative Procedures Act because their definitions of automatically and single function of the trigger completely contradict the NFA's definition of a machine gun. Mm-hmm. So they're not entitled to go back and define terms that Congress have already defined. I mean, that's Congress's job. And the Supreme Court is very clear. There's tons of case law on this that say, the people can rely on what Congress wrote and what Congress intended, not the bureaucratic agency that interprets terms as to new social problems that may crop up or whatnot. Congress needs to go back and fix it. If they think that there's a problem here, Congress needs to fix it. And, I never agree with Dianne Feinstein. I mean, if you tell me one thing, I'll automatically take the other position. She says the ATF doesn't have the authority for this. I agree with her on that. They don't have the authority to do this, but they're doing it because Trump told them to. And I have a problem with that. Because if he can do it, the next president can do it. Sure,
of course. And if you can redefine it just with an agency redefining it, they can redefine anything.
Absolutely anything. And the most troubling thing about this rule is I can make a case that this will bring in all semi-automatic firearms because all semi-automatic firearms can be bump fired. So now we're talking about, just a standard AR-15. I can bump fire it without a belt loop. I mean, without a bump stock, I can use a belt loop. I can use a rubber band. I brought rubber bands to court with me, and I said, Judge, I can take this rubber band, pull it around the mag well and the trigger, and there's my bump stock. Here's a video. Well, the ATF said that's my alternative. So, what are they banning here?
Right. So, all right. So you're challenging that. Is there any other basis, anything else you're doing with this case?
I had a thought about Whitaker's appointment being unconstitutional after Senator Blumenthal sued the Trump administration over Whitaker's appointment. So I threw that out there on the internet. It got picked up, and that's another part of our complaint. And then, of course, we have a due process claim. The people that bought these, they relied on the government's telling us that it's okay to own these. And now here we are, 10, 12 years later, we don't get any money for our stuff back that we purchased on that reliance, and we could possibly be felons. So there's a couple different counts that we're alleging against the government.
And I want people to understand that this is not like a slap on the wrist. This is a federal felony if you violate this law after the 26th.
You go to prison. It's I think it's a $250,000 10-year prison term. So it's not a little civil penalty. And get ready. And it's not just about bump stocks. They're coming for other things. They exempted the binary triggers in this one, but why not take them? When they pass this one and it gets upheld.
We've seen what's happened in states. They've actually, the way they've written the supposed ban on bump stocks is it includes, basically it's written to where anything that makes a gun fire faster, that could be like any aftermarket trigger. It could be even a trigger job by a gunsmith.
I mean, well, what if you just oiled it and it fires faster? Is that now? It's. I can't say what I really want to say, but it's really, really dumb the way that they're. I know I have to be careful. I'm from the South. I'm a gentleman, but it's just you can't do this. And thank God for Mark LaRue helping me fund these cases. And I know I sent you a list of cases that I'm working on. We're fighting the NICS stuff where they're not letting the people that do NFA get denied for their NFA purchases like suppressors. FBI's position is we're just not going to let you appeal those. So basically people don't have any recourse, any remedy. And so we're suing them. I've sued the ATF and the FBI for documents from Mandalay Bay. And, without his help, his financial help, none of this would be possible.
This stuff's expensive.
It's super expensive. We had a hearing in New York last week, Alan Beck and I did, and we got a text order on February 20th to be in New York on March 5th, and it costs money to fly two attorneys around the country and go argue these cases. It absolutely costs money.
All right, I know it's impossible. Can you handicap it for us? How do you think you're going to do?
I am really bad at that because I thought that I was going to get that injunction after my argument on February 19th. I mean, I just obliterated all of the arguments. So I don't know what to tell you. I'm hopeful, but I'm just kind of I don't know what it's going to be like. If they don't want to rule on the bump stock, I hope they just give us the injunction until they can really give us an opinion on it. Because we're, like you said, we're 16 days away. At
least if they could stop the enforcement of it, at least for a while. All right, Stephen, thank you so much. We're going to get you back on here again and talk about some of these other cases. Okay.
Sounds good, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, I appreciate it. Yeah, if you have a bump stock, this is important. If it were me, I would hold on to it. I wouldn't do anything with it until the 26th of March. I would wait to find out what the news is, because they may get a stay, they may get an injunction, they may get something that delays this process while it goes forward. I wouldn't do anything with it right now, okay? Tell you what, when we come back, if somebody else has a lawsuit on this, and it's taken a different angle on the thing. Why are we spending so much time on this? Well, it's just like Stephen said. This is only a step. It's not the thing. Once they do this, they can say, well, you know what? We just figured out that any semi-automatic can be fired this way. We have to get rid of them all. And they're open about it. That is their goal, is to ban them all.
I heard the click, click, click of her stiletto heels coming down the hall. And I caught her perfume before she opened the door to my office. And she stood there looking like $1,000,000 tax-free. I want to talk to you, she said. Come back later, I said. I'm listening to Tom Gresham's Gun Talk right now.
We're going to keep talking about this because it is that important. We have a federal agency, the ATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, which is taking the political move of, after it has issued letters, when you bought a bump stock, you got a letter with it from the ATF that says this is legal. Because people were saying, is this legal? Well, yeah, ATF says it is. So you got your bump stock, you have a letter from the ATF says it's legal, and now the ATF says, you know what, we were wrong, and you hundreds of thousands of people who bought these were actually committing a federal felony. You could be fined $250,000 and go to the federal penitentiary for 10 years. Yeah, our bad. There are, of course, some lawsuits out there. Our good friend Clark Aposhian out of Utah is involved in one of those. Clark joins us right now. Clark, how are you, sir?
I'm well, Tom Gresham.
So tell me, there are a number of different lawsuits. What made you decide to do your own lawsuit on this case, and how is yours different?
Well, we're working with the New Civil Liberties Alliance out of D.C., and Caleb Kruckenberg, fantastic attorney. And he's saying, basically, among other things, it is a violation of the APA, the Administrative Procedures Act, the Chevron Doctrine, in addition to Whitaker not being appointed correctly. But it's Congress's role to define, if they're going to change the law, that's Congress's role. It's not, that goes along with the Chevron Doctrine, it's not for an administration to do or an administrative agency.
I agree with you on that. On the other hand, we know that agencies basically have regulations that have the force of law, whether it's EPA or the Forest Service or the Park Service or anything else. They just publish a regulation and it now has the force of law. How is this different?
And it does, but that regulation has to comply with United States code. So they can make any regulation they want but it still has to have that test. Does it comply with code? Because regulations are underneath code. In addition, one other thing I forgot to add is that it's under the Fifth Amendment. It's an illegal taking, an illegal government taking of something that was perfectly legal, and now it isn't, and they're not giving us any money for it.
Well, that's the other thing. And I've heard people talk about it. I didn't know it's actually being included in the lawsuit. If you paid money for this and they say, okay, now you have to get rid of it or turn it in, and yeah, too bad, but we're not going to pay you for it. Yeah, that would fall under an illegal taking. So where are you with this suit? Where has it been filed, and what's going on with it?
So we filed in 10th Circuit Court, and we had a hearing on our injunction on Valentine's Day. And so we're still waiting to hear from the justice on that one. An interesting take on this one is that they were trying to find out, hey, we've got to get this done by the 26th and so on and so forth. And we said, well, what do we do on the 26th? And the justice kind of said, and because we had two federal attorneys going against us that day, he said, well, maybe we can just impound your device until such time as the main ruling comes out. And the ATF came back and said, hey, we don't have the facilities to hold 500,000 bump stocks. And the justice came right back at him and said, we're only talking about one bump stock here, Mr. Aposhian. I think you have the facilities to hold that one. But anyway, so it was an interesting little take. They may impound it so that we can still, if we win in the overall case, we get it back.
Yeah, but that sure does leave everybody else, the other 500,000 people out there in a lurch.
Well, I'm sure that they could then apply that. I'm sure that the ATF can get a warehouse or something.
Yeah, with the record keeping so that each person makes sure he or she gets hers back. Yeah, that's not going to happen. It's just not.
It'll be one of those warehouses in Indiana Jones at the end.
Exactly. So, what? Right now you are waiting for a ruling on your request for an injunction?
That's right. We're waiting on that. And so ours, now I know that the rulings from 9th and I think maybe even D.C. Circuit have come out and they said, no, we're not going to file an injunction. We're still waiting on ours in 10th Circuit on the decision.
Okay, from a legal standpoint, if other courts have said, no, we're going to let it go forward, does it take only one court to say we're going to issue an injunction and it stops it?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I'm getting a little bit out of my realm here, but I think just in the area that the 10th Circuit covers, which would, obviously cover Utah and some other states around us. Okay. So I don't know how that works.
Okay, well, that seems like that would set up for, probably would stop it everywhere. And, of course, everybody's wanting to know right now is what do I do? And with our previous guest, who is another attorney challenging this, basically he's saying, look, just keep paying attention. I wouldn't do anything about your particular bump stock at least until the 26th of March, which is when this ruling goes into effect, because right up until that date, we could get a stay. So don't go out there and chop them up or burn them or whatever you're going to do, because it may turn out that, we didn't have to do that.
Yeah, and there's nobody making them anymore either, so they'll be collector's items. That's
true. They have stopped making those things, so there you go. All right, I'm going to switch on you on something here, because you are one of my go-to guys on firearms instructions, particularly self-defense instruction. I'm looking at this story. I'm going to throw this thing at you because this is fun. Let's see. Shannon Lee Gosling is being considered for the federal office of the Office of Violence Against Women. She is getting a lot of pushback from women's rights groups because she says that women who are facing domestic violence, one of their options is a firearm. Right? Okay. You've taught a lot of women to shoot. You've taught a lot of women self-defense with firearms, and I'm sure some of them have come to you as victims of domestic violence. Fair enough?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Here's the one that I really appreciated. We've got, who is this woman? I got to find her. Let's see. Okay. Carol Ann Peterson, a senior lecturer. Love this. A senior lecturer at the University of California's Peck School of Social Work, and the founder and CEO of a group that educates corporations about the impact of domestic violence, says You do not arm battered women. She says the reason for that is simply that unless battered women are out taking a gun course at the practice range every day, understanding how a weapon works, it will get used against them.
So we're now getting tactical instruction, or maybe instruction from somebody that probably has not fired a gun and obviously doesn't fire a gun, and she says we need it every day. Also, we're not talking about women going out and enforcing the law. We're not talking about them investigating crimes or doing SWAT teams. We're talking about empowering women with a device that when somebody tries to harm them, they pull it out of wherever it is, point it, and shoot.
Yeah, one of the things I always say, Clark, one of the things I always ask them is, they say, well, your gun would just be used against you. I say, really? Does that happen a lot? They say, oh, yeah, it happens all the time. I said, okay. Then it should be easy for you to give me 3 citations of when it happened. Can you give me 3 specific times? And they're like dumbfounded. I go, okay, well, how about 2? Give me 2 citations of when that's happened. Okay, no? How about 1? Just one single time when a woman pulled a gun out in self-defense and points it at somebody and gets taken away from her. Give me 1 time.
But it happens all the time in the movies.
In the movies. That's exactly it. And all the information about this comes from the movies. You're exactly right. Clark, I'm going to have to scoot here. I appreciate, would you do me a favor? Keep us posted on the progress on your lawsuit, because this is all coming to a head right away. We're 16 days away from this ban going into effect.
Yep, I will. I'll let you know.
All right, appreciate that. Thanks, sir. All right, 866-TALK-GUN. Don't you just love it when we get tactical information and instruction from the senior lecturer of a school of social work? Right. How many times have you heard the story, oh, yeah, well, that gun would just get used against you? Really? 866-TALK-GUN.
The next big thing for the AR-15 has arrived. The Brownells BRN 180 Upper, a modernized version of the Armalite AR-180, featuring a 16-inch barrel, a 223 wild chamber, and a full-length pick rail. The BRN 180 skips the buffer system to allow complete function of the firearm with the stock folded or extended. Best of all, the Brownells BRN 180 mounts to any mil-spec AR lower. Visit Brownells.com today.
Since 1937, Ducks Unlimited has led the charge on wetlands and waterfowl conservation. Wetlands reduce the effects of flooding and recharge our drinking water, but perhaps most importantly, they allow us to experience what makes the outdoors so great. Band together to rescue our wetlands.
Want great deals on guns, ammunition, and gear? Download the free Gundealio app today. With Gundealio, you can search for deals, listen to the Gun Talk podcast, watch gun videos, read gun news, and get notifications right to your phone about deals and special offers. Save money on the products you want from the companies you love. New deals, discounts, and rebates added daily. Gundealio, available for free in the App Store and Google Play.
Interesting. I'm reading my good friend Ron Spomer, one of the top writers about guns, particularly for hunting rifles and hunting. If you want to check it out, RonSpomerOutdoors.com. Really good articles there. He's talking about the 280 AI, which is the Remington 280 cartridge, but the Ackley improved version. P.O. Ackley, the famous gunsmith who did the Ackley improved versions, basically a 40-degree shoulder. They Ackley improved versions of cartridges, and there are a lot of them. The 257 Roberts Ackley improved, a lot of different ones. Generally will produce anywhere from 50 to 200, maybe 250 feet per second increased velocity. Okay, cool. Is it important? I don't know. Is 200 feet per second more important? A lot of people think so because they buy Magnums, and that's all they're getting out of them. But just reading, he's saying that actually the 280 AI is actually becoming more popular than the parent cartridge, the 280 Remington. Now, the 280 Remington has a fascinating and goofy history. Remington just they were really good at marketing a lot of things, but occasionally they blew it, and they definitely did on the 280 Remington cartridge. It's a great 7mm cartridge. Okay, essentially, not exactly, essentially a 30-06 neck down to 7mm. It does great work. You could say that actually the 7mm08 kind of does the same thing, and it does. But they didn't do it well. The 280 was produced for their semi-automatic and pump-action rifles, and they didn't load it well. And then they changed the name because it didn't sell. They changed it at one point briefly for a few days to the 7mm06. It wasn't that. They had to change it back because that was a dangerous name because people could screw up with their ammo choices. Then they changed it to the 7mm Express Remington. And it was probably called that for 10 or 15 years. And then they ditched that and changed the name back to the 280 Remington. It's goofy what they've done to it, but it's a great cartridge if you are looking for a deer elk cartridge. So anyway, you can read all about the 280 AI at Ron's Former Outdoors. Here's a thought for you. One of the reasons we're seeing people get away from magnums a good bit these days. One of the challenges for magnums cartridges is that it pushes the bullets faster. And as a result, it's harder on bullets when they impact. It's why, in many cases, we being in the industry, had to develop better bullets, because if you used a bullet that was made for 30-06, for instance, and it expanded well out of 30-06 at those velocities, and then you pushed it out of a 300 Magnum, and it impacts at a higher velocity, the bullet might not hold together. It might blow up. So we ended up with these controlled expansion bullets, tougher bullets. They would penetrate well, hold together. Here's a thought for you. Ponder this. If you go back to standard velocities, 7M08, 6.5 Creedmoor, that type of 280, do you need controlled expansion bullets? I don't know. I mean, I personally like them. I think they perform very well. I think it's smart, but just an interesting thought. If you're dropping the velocity down, do you need the controlled expansion bullets? I don't know. Line 1, Kate's with us out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hello, Kate. Welcome to Gun Talk. What's going on here?
What's going on? I've been seesawing back and forth about gun ownership and for the purpose of self-defense, self-esteem, and a sense of security.
Okay.
And I zeroed in on a small 9mm revolver is kind of what's in the back of my mind. However, there are two things that are stopping me cold. One is right now our legislature is in session. They've got 12 gun bills in. It sounds like they're going to pass them all. One is the red flag bill, and that red flag bill leads to my second concern. I have a problem neighbor who on 2 separate occasions called the police. The first time she called, she told them that I threatened her with a gun, which did not happen.
All right, Kate, let's do this. I'm going to get you to hold for a second because this is fascinating, and we need a little bit more time to play with this, to answer your questions. We'll take a quick break here. We're going to come back and talk with Kate. Fascinating questions. Do you get a revolver in that situation? Well, I'll let you know. 866-TALK-GUN. All right, back with you here. We're trying to get Kate back. We lost her there. Did have a range report. The guy says, when my grandfather... Oh, we've got Kate back. All right, let's do this. We're talking with Kate out of Albuquerque. And Kate, you're thinking about getting a revolver, but you said that New Mexico is going to pass this, or if they haven't already, the red flag law, the gun confiscation law, the no due process, where somebody could call the police and say, hey, you've made some threats, they can come take your guns. You said you had a neighbor who's actually lied to the police. I'm going to ask you the quick question here. You there?
She did that. And the second time she called, I was standing there looking out my window yelling at her to get out of my bushes. the police were pouring into my backyard ready to take me down. And it was all a lie. I don't know whether to get a gun, forget about a gun, and learn how to box, or run and hide.
Okay. You got to get this thing figured out with your neighbor, first of all. I don't know if you're doing something that's causing this issue, because I don't know who the players are or what's going on. If she's making false accusations against you, you may end up wanting to go to the police and say, look, she's making false charges, and what are my options here? I think you're probably wise to be conscious of the red flag laws, what's going on. And frankly, if you've got a dispute with a neighbor that sounds like it's escalating, I'm going to tend to push to keep you away from buying a gun, because that's not the solution. The other thing is, here's the real quick, and look, if the woman's making false accusations or false police charges against you, then press charges against her, okay? I mean, just do that. Get it out there, because you want to be on record as being the victim in all this deal. The other thing is, if you decide you want a gun for self-defense, the first thing you want to do is take some training. Don't buy a gun first. Get the training first. I would encourage you to go take a concealed carry class to learn what the laws are about the use of self-defense, of guns and self-defense, the use of deadly force to protect yourself in the state. That's going to be critical to know when you can, when you can't, what's going on there. Also, the more classes, the more instruction you can get, the better. What you may decide, and some people, the more training you get, the more you realize I don't ever want to have to use a gun. It's interesting. People sometimes think, well, gee, if you get all this training, you're going to end up wanting to use it. No, it doesn't actually happen that way. Generally speaking, when you get good training, you realize, I don't ever want to have to do this. So I would encourage you, number one, if you've got a problem with a neighbor, contact the police. If she's making false charges against you or false police reports, you got to get in front of that. And the other is, if you decide that you really do want a gun for self-protection, go get some training first, find out what the laws are. But you got to get this situation worked out. If you've got a real problem neighbor, I mean, your options include, legal action up to and including actually moving. Sometimes you just got to get yourself out of the situation that you have with this person. I wish you luck with it. It does not sound good. By the way, I just signed up for a training class. I'm going to go out to Gunsight in a few weeks here. Going to take their close quarters pistol class. Sounds interesting. Steve Tarani, head instructor on that one. We've had him on the show here a number of times. That's going to be fun. What classes are you taking? Be sure to let me know. Also, by the way, if you would like to be a part of the first-person defender show that we do, we're looking for volunteers. You can contact us. Shoot an email to info@guntalk.com. info@guntalk.com. We'll give the information on that. Hey, don't go far. If you'd like to be a part of the after show, give us a call right now. It's going to be pretty fun. It always is fun. 866-TALK-GUN is the number here. In the meantime, keep your training going. You got to keep it up. Shooting is a perishable skill. You have to go back and get trained up again. That means working with an instructor. Be safe, carry everywhere, and get involved as an activist for the Second Amendment.